Good morning and welcome to the Core Connection. I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network. And today's topic is networking and the power of connection and networking with others for support and expansion of our awareness and our experience, and so that it should be an interesting conversation. So before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it, and imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding into your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing every cell, every organ, bringing vital life energy throughout your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, any stress, any negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And this time, imagine brilliant, bright light lighting you up from the inside out, electrifying and energizing every electron, every molecule, illuminating your cells and lighting you up from the inside out. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's just gently press our palms together. Very, very, very softly rub your fingers against your palms to feel the deliciousness of that sensation, and bring yourselves present right here, right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, we're talking today about networking, and this is sort of a mixed bag topic for me because I tend to be um, more of a hermit type person. I'm not like a big networking person, which is interesting because, I feel connected to you guys, and I feel like you're part of my network. And I have a bunch of people through Sustainability Now. Which is the podcast that I do with my partner Scott Billy on sustainability. And we have a community of folks that join us for movie nights. In fact, we have a movie night tonight, and we're going to be seeing a movie about, it's called More Than Honey. It's about the plight of the bees and the importance of the bees. And anyway, so I have these networks and I have other groups that I'm part of that, help to connect me to the world in different ways. And at the same time, when it comes down to it, I'm kind of shy. It's a weird dynamic, being kind of an extroverted introvert. Like I can bring it in certain contexts, and at the same time, I really spend the bulk of my life pretty much by myself. So I don't know about you. I've had challenges with this networking thing. uh, I've been able to cultivate a part of myself that is able to, um, well, I to really connect with people. That's kind of my thing, is to connect heart to heart, one to one. And when we do that, there's a strength of the bond, like, and how can we create a network that is supportive of us? How do we find support in a network? And um, when we give support to others, others are more inclined to give support to us, right? So um, that can show up in all different ways. It can show up in making introductions. It can show up in being interested in what interests another person. So, for instance, in the Sustainability Now network, I know what different people are doing. And so when an opportunity arises to connect people because they have common interests, or that they might further each other's mission or intention, then I reach out and make introductions because I'm I want to see positive action. I want to see uh, things happen. And so I enjoy that, and I get gratification from seeing people supporting one another and being successful together. So I'm wondering what it's like for you. I mean, I know that networking has become a pastime. You know, it's become something that there are all kinds of networking events and all kinds of networking platforms, and it's interesting to me to realize that I I don't take as great advantage of all these wonderful opportunities as I could because I am kind of a hermit. You know, you might not believe that about me, but it's true. Um, and I value my private time as well as valuing the social time. It's just the social time. Um, it's interesting because it feeds me and it also takes energy. I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of you are very energy sensitive people, sensitive individuals, and I'm wondering how the energy of networking works for you. Part of the reason that this topic came up is because yesterday we talked about the observer effect and this new study that's come out hypothesizing that reality is created by a network of observers. And so it got me to thinking about networks, and it got me to thinking about good morning, Rosalind. So glad to have you here. Um, we're talking about networking. And so the reason this topic came up is because of the article that I was talking about yesterday about networks of observers creating reality. And I was thinking about how powerful that is to get a network of people that have some commonality of ideas and intentions uh, to be to be observing the new world into being. And then I was thinking more about networks and the nature of networks and what does that look like, what does it provide for us, and in thinking about networks and thinking about our connections and thinking about meeting these new people and connecting to these new people, what I recognize is that it's a vehicle of expansion. And so if we can see ourselves in this network, the reaches of the network are far broader than the reaches that we could than the reach that we can have individually, you know, certainly in isolation. And so there are resources available to us in the context of networks that are unavailable to us otherwise. So one of the material examples of this idea of networking is where people in a neighborhood share resources. So physical resources like maybe a snow blower or a leaf blower or um, any good morning, Elaine. Welcome, welcome. We're talking about networking and networks and how when we're part of when we're consciously part of a larger web, that we have so much more available to us in terms of resources, in terms of thought, in terms of support, and um, and the outreach. And so, you know, it brings to mind the game 6 Degrees of 6 Degrees of Kevin Bacon. I don't know if you're aware of that game, but there's the notion that we're all connected by 6 degrees with anybody. And so by the, you know, this one knows that one, who knows that one, who knows that one, who knows Kevin Bacon. And that's the game that was built up around that concept. But what that is network. And it's saying that we are all interconnected, and when we utilize those resources, and when we support that network, then there's nothing that's not available to us. And so, for instance, I was going to, I was going away for the Joe Dispenza intensive I've told you about, and I have Maggie, who is flying around the room right now, and I also have a very beloved cat, and so I arranged for a pet sitter, and 2.5, 3 days before. Good afternoon, Pat. Welcome, welcome. We're talking about networking today and the power of networks, and building them, and how we can do that. And anyway, so I had a pet sitter arranged, and 3 days before I was going away, she canceled, and I kind of was in a little bit of a panic because I didn't know how I was going to have my pets taken care of. And I reached out. I realized in that moment that I actually do have access to a bunch of different networks. And I reached out to networks that ended up representing more than 100 people, certainly. And people gave me all kinds of connections and contacts and suggestions, which was really awesome. As it worked out, my nephew thankfully came to the rescue and took care of the kids. But I now have resources that I didn't previously have. And I think that we rely on our connections and our networks for all kinds of things, for resources, for support, for bouncing things off of people. And I guess the question that it raises for me is how many people, I think we can think of these networks maybe also as circles and maybe orbits, but I have a small inner circle. I know some people have tons and tons of people that they consider close, um, and that they rely on in a regular fashion. What I'm noticing, which is really, really interesting, is that circle of people that I have a very close affinity to, the number of people that are in that circle are growing. And those aren't people that I have necessarily regular contact with, that I don't have daily contact with these people. When I was a lot younger, I would have maybe one friend, maybe two, and would speak to them pretty much daily, and sometimes multiple times a day. Like, these were really tight, close relationships. And I've noticed that over the past number of years that shifted a lot. And I don't know if that's because life has become busier. I don't know if that's because I have interaction with more people. Um, on in a different context. I'm wondering what that's like for you, your circle of friends. um, do you have a big circle of friends? Do you have a few confidants? Do you have a large circle? And um, and do you engage in a lot of social activities where you all get together? What does it look like for you, and how do you find this notion of networking? So Elaine says, for me, the universal network worked out pretty good for you as the for me, the universal network worked out pretty good for you as the nephew stepped forward to also receiving what was to be experienced as well. I agree that the universe provided, and my nephew provided. And it was awesome that he stepped up. And so, when we talk, I love that you talk about the universal network, because certainly that's where we're gaining our primary support, right? And it shows up in all different ways. um, I'm really addressing circles of humans here, but the we don't want to give um, we don't want to forget about what's driving the whole thing. You know, the universal network of support that's there for us all the time, for sure. Um, and I see pluses and minuses perhaps of some, you know, that you might become so entrenched in a human network that uh, that it could become restrictive, you know, like where there are certain beliefs that are held, or certain uh, practices that are practiced that uh, may become restrictive restrictive to you. I think that where this conversation is coming from is from an exploration of our interconnectedness, and moving from a place. Good morning, Tammy. Wonderful to have you here with us. And yeah, I know Maggie's got a lot to say this morning. She's she's pretty busy today. So I am wondering and thinking about this interconnectedness, and what it looks like. How do we navigate our small intimate groups and these larger groups, and what does it feel like for you when you navigate in larger groups? And do you focus on one or two people and go deep, or do you connect with lots and lots of different people? And Elaine says, I'm in the place that the universe works through humans and always shows up in my life perfectly on time. I just stay open. Yeah, rather than necessarily deliberately going out and seeking a result, but or and there are all these networking events, and you know, I find that sometimes I choose to participate in them from a place of curiosity. When in the past I've participated in them with an intention, like this is what I want out of this, or then it has a whole different feel than if I show up with the intention of curiosity and connection. Just curiosity and connection without saying, "Oh, I want to build my business," or "I want to talk to I want to get X number of contacts," or something like that. But rather to have the intention of connection and the expectation of surprise and miracles. Why not miracles? So I find that expecting miracles is a really powerful practice. I don't know if you engage in that, but expecting the unexpected, always being in anticipation of an adventure, that's a fun place to be coming from, without an idea of what it's going to look like particularly. So Maggie's having a ball this morning, huh? She she likes to come in the shower, not to get under the shower head, but to drink the drips of water that come off the shower head. And today I pet her head, and she had like a little mohawk on her head for a little while. It was very, very cute. Anyway, so Elaine says, for me, it's not in the doing, but that is for me. We all have a choice in how and what we want to experience. And I appreciate that you bring that up and make that distinction about doing. That's, um, I I agree that where I coach people into being and where I intend in my own experience is to be moving from being rather than doing, to have the doing be inspired by the being. So sometimes, like when I'm talking about going to a networking event, maybe I'm feeling inspired to connect with new people, or maybe, and this often happens actually, is I just get a feeling like, oh, gotta go to this event. Don't know why. I'm just sort of following whatever the direction is, or the inspiration to go to an event, and without knowing. And so there is going with the sense of curiosity and trust that, oh, okay, this is there's something here for me. Don't know what it is, don't know how it'll show up, but I'm going to show up to be in the place where those miracles can happen. And actually, I find, that the intention to be in action can also put you in the place where miracles happen. Like you don't know, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, and when we put ourselves in these new sorts of environments, we open the doors for possibility. And so networking also is very much about, like, I'm not talking about the speed networking kind of thing, or even necessarily um, specified events, but when when you need help with something, when you're trying to find a resource, it makes sense to reach out to people that might know people who know people who can connect you with whatever it is you're looking for. And I found that to be such a powerful resource, to be connecting with people um, that I resonate with. That there becomes a deeper bond, and then there's a trust, and then there's when there's that connection, there's a greater freedom to ask for support and help. At least that's so for me. I mean, I wouldn't ask someone that I don't know as readily for support or help as I would for people that I have a connection to. And actually, this brings up something that is reminding me of part of networking is establishing relationships, and how we establish relationships is by really showing caring and connection. And so I was in a coaching program a while back, and one of the assignments that we had from our coach was something called a power hour. And this is kind of on the order of putting yourself in the path of the universal flow. So what what the power hour was getting on the phone, getting your list of contacts out, getting on the phone and making phone calls, call after call, no particular uh, agenda other than to connect. And the idea wasn't to sit and have an hour long conversation with someone. It was to touch base and say, hey, I've been thinking of you. I'd love to connect. Can we set up a time? How are you doing? Let's set up a time to get together. And it was actually through that exercise that I reconnected with Scott Billy, who is my partner in Sustainability Now. And it was just through a connection conversation, like, how are you? What's going on? What's happening in your life, that we found these similar interests that led to the development of sustainability now. So by getting into action, by putting yourself in the space of possibility through networking, all kinds of things can occur that you wouldn't even have imagined. So Elaine says, yes, the hardest thing to do for some is nothing, but it's up to what one wants to experience. It's all perfect on the journey of self discovery. I agree that doing nothing can be a discipline. So, we can manifest that things just come to us as well. I think we get to make a distinction between doing and being, and there is doing that can come from beingness. What is it to do nothing? It's a really interesting challenge, to say, okay, well, I'm going to do nothing. What does that look like? Does it look like reading a book? Does it look like watching TV? Does it look like meditating? Does it look like sitting in nature and being quiet? I mean, all of those things are, they're doing things, they are doing in their own way. So in a certain respect, we don't have the ability to do nothing. Thank you, Elaine. To do nothing does not mean inactivity. Exactly. It means, I think it maybe means the difference between being receptive versus um, putting using our will actively, maybe. So to be receptive to inspiration and then to act on inspiration. So Elaine says it does require a great deal of trust in yourself to call for that you truly desire. Exactly, to be present. So in this doing, it's an invitation. Maybe the the doing nothing is creating an invitation and receptivity versus trying to project our will onto something. I think that it's the inward versus outward, kind of like the receiving versus the, I am not thinking of the right word other than doing. But yes, that's, um, I think that, again, like being inspired to go to a particular event or go to a particular place, following that inspiration is following that call of your heart that's taking you into an opportunity for whatever is going to unfold, versus going to being doing being a doing. So I would be being a doing if I go to the network event and I talk to all the people and I'm not connected and I'm not inspired and I'm doing it because I think I should, and I think that's how I have to build my business, or working hard because that's what I think I should be doing to build my business, or to get some kind of outcome. Um, and so, thank you. Force. So Elaine says beyond force. So moving beyond force, from force to inspiration. So, beyond force. I'm trying to make something happen, but allowing the flow of the natural to manifest. Exactly. So um, it's a nuanced it's a nuanced shift, actually, but it's transformative. It's transformative to be responsive, rather than driving, if that makes any sense. And intention is kind of like an open container versus objective or goal, where the goal is kind of a fixed outcome. And when we think instead of an intention, it leaves room for even more than we might have imagined, or it leaves room for something to show up differently than we might have imagined. So anyway, that's networking. I'm curious to I am curious to know how you apply networking in your life, or if you do in any kind of conscious or deliberate way, and what kind of networks you have. Maybe it'll be something that you can look at throughout the day. Anyway, I think I'm going to call it a day today. I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection. That's Maggie. And Maggie and I go live each weekday morning here at on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page at 9 a.m. Eastern. And I encourage you to check out the other wonderful programming here on Enlightened World Network. And Elaine says it's going to know yourself, and how it works through you is the joy of the ride. I agree. And the more we trust, the more miracles come through. Absolutely, 100%. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, Elaine, for your big engagement this morning, and thank you guys who showed up to chime in and say hello, Rosalind and Pat and Tammy, and all of you who are joining us. Thank you so much for being here and creating the space for these conversations and musings. And it's such a delight and privilege to be with you. I appreciate it so deeply. And until next time, really, I just send so much love.